Rishi Sunak went to show his support for Jewish Londoners at a North London secondary school this morning. It follows some schools closing last week and other parents taking their kids out due to safety fears. The Prime Minister and the Mayor warned protesters who glorified terrorist activity at the central London march at the weekend that they risked prison, as our political correspondent Simon Harris explains.
It wasn't her shouting, but the picture of a paraglider sellotaped to her back. It's believed to be a reference to the motorised paraglider used by Hamas terrorists to fly into Israel during their murderous attack on October the 7th. The woman in red is one of two protesters on Saturday's pro-Palestinian march in London, spotted wearing the same image. Police want to question both of them.
The police are asking members of the public to help them identify these two people. Supporting a proscribed organisation is a criminal offence, and that's why it's incredibly important. If somebody knows who had these, badges on the back, they cooperate with the police, so these people can be, caught and charges brought.
At morning assembly at a North London secondary school, there was a surprise appearance from the Prime Minister.
We've had an appalling rise in anti-Semitic incidences over the past week, and that is something that is just simply tragic. No young person, none of you, should have to deal with hate like that.
He told pupils he wanted to show his solidarity with the Jewish community.
We provided more funding for the Community Security Trust. That's the organisation that helps keep schools, synagogues and other Jewish community institutions safe. We spent time with the police to make sure they have all the tools, powers and guidance they need to police protests over the weekend appropriately and strike that right balance.
Free, free!
But some question whether the authorities have got the balance right. Saturday's march attracted tens of thousands of protesters.
We all have a right to free expression, which includes the right to protest.
Ian Duncan Smith, Sir Ian.
In Parliament, MPs shared their thoughts.
I have a Jewish sister-in-law, and she was quite clear that she has never felt more threatened than over the weekend when people took to the streets waving flags bearing Hamas's crest on them.
These atrocities were committed by terrorists who do not seek peace and have set back the just cause of Palestinian freedom and statehood, which I have long supported, along with many across this House.
One MP raised the case of Ada Sagi, a 75-year-old thought to be a hostage. Her son lives in London.
I'm asking if you will please, and remember the family are watching you, Prime Minister, will you please just spare 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes to have a quick conversation.
Mr. Speaker, of course I'm happy to have a quick conversation, but I'm also engaged actively with our partners in the region to try and ensure the safe release of our hostages.
Mr. Sunak told the Commons at least 6 Britons died in the Hamas raid and 10 are missing. Simon Harris, ITV News.
In the last few hours, the climate campaigner Greta Thunberg has been arrested in central London. The 20-year-old was with protesters from a group called Fossil Free London, who were blocking access to a hotel where oil executives were meeting. Our correspondent Simon Harris has the story.
Welcome to the UK, Greta!
Surrounded by police, this is the moment the planet's best-known eco-warrior was put into a police van in London. As officers held back other protesters, Greta Thunberg was searched, her pockets emptied.
Thank you, Greta!
Earlier, she'd been part of a noisy demonstration outside the Intercontinental Hotel in Park Lane. It was directed at the bosses of major oil and gas companies who were meeting inside. But hotel guests were also caught up in the protest.
The small disruption that they're facing today is nothing compared to the disruption that the oil and gas executives in there are causing.
We're certainly making our presence known and hopefully making the people here think about what they're doing.
It's on my shoulders to fight for my future, fight for my little siblings' future.
There was the customary sit-down protest to block the road and the pavement. Abseilers unfurled a banner on the hotel with the words "Make Big Oil Pay." These are familiar tactics with a familiar message, a point acknowledged by Greta Thunberg.
I think we are many who are starting to sound like broken records because we have to keep saying the same thing over and over again for years. And yet I have not even been doing this for a long time.
Some activists soon found themselves being handcuffed and dragged away. After a few hours, the police decided to use the Public Order Act to force the protesters to move, and there were more arrests.
People! Power!
Greta Thunberg was seen enthusiastically chanting with other protesters. The organisers, Fossil Free London, said she was arrested after linking arms with fellow activists outside the hotel front door. Pictures on social media showed her being taken away by police before being put into the van. The organisers of the protest say Greta Thunberg was arrested around 2:30 this afternoon, and they think she was taken to Wandsworth police station. However, the Met hasn't confirmed that or even said that she was taken into custody. All the police are saying is that 29 people were arrested here today, mostly for obstruction and offences under the Public Order Act. None of them have been charged. They all remain in custody. So Fossil Free London assumes that includes Greta Thunberg and that she hasn't been released. Duncan.
A regulator has warned the crowding at Euston Station is at unacceptable levels and has issued National Rail with an improvement notice. The Office of Rail and Road analysed CCTV of 3 incidents of concern in the summer. Well, our political correspondent Simon Harris is at Euston for us now. Simon, what does that mean then?
Well, Duncan, Euston is among the top 10 busiest stations in Britain, handling 23 million passengers a year, and that can get extremely crowded, especially during the evening peak, rush hour approaching 7 o'clock, when cheaper off-peak tickets kick in. According to the regulator, the Office of Rail and Road, on 3 occasions in the summer, the overcrowding was potentially dangerous with no crowd control measures in place. A number of passengers suffered minor injuries, and it could have been a lot worse. One of the problems, it seems, is that passengers standing waiting for their trains often surge forwards when the platform number is announced, causing pinch points. And it seems Network Rail hadn't properly risk assessed those pinch points. Well, the Office of Rail and Road has now issued an improvement notice to Network Rail, saying that there have to be changes. Network Rail says changes are taking place. For example, there are now no longer any shops on the main concourse, which creates more room. The huge giant indicator board, which used to dominate this station, has been taken down and replaced by smaller ones in different places, and there are also plans for passengers to be allowed to board trains earlier to try to avoid those last-minute surges.
Simon at Euston, thank you.
The Mayor of London today says he has no regrets over expanding ULEZ to the outer parts of the capital after a significant backlash. It was one of the issues he spoke about with our political correspondent Simon Harris ahead of the late debate tonight.
You know how much hostility there has been to the ULEZ extension. Do you regret it?
Well, let's look at the evidence of the ULEZ in central London. We brought it in, despite opposition, a reduction of almost 50% in toxicity, a third fewer children being admitted to hospital because of air pollution. We expanded it to inner London, a further 20% reduction in toxicity. Children going to 500 schools benefiting from clean air. We've now expanded it so 9 million Londoners breathe clean air. Now we've made sure every single Londoner who may be adversely affected...
I take it that's no regrets.
Well, no, the key issue is we've made sure there's support available for every Londoner. I wish we could give even more support, but the government's not giving us a penny when they have given support to Birmingham, Bristol, Portsmouth, other parts of the country. But every Londoner now receives support if they've got a car or a minibus or a van. And we're going to carry on helping Londoners.
You were very quick when the attack happened by Hamas to support Israel. Is your support still unequivocal?
Let me be quite clear. The actions of Hamas, a proscribed organisation, were outrageous. It was a terrorist act. We've seen over many, many years the desperate plight of Palestinians living in Gaza. We've seen since October the 8th the catastrophe of, in my view, disproportionate force used by the Israeli government. I think it's collective punishment. What we need to do is to try and de-escalate the violence. What the Israeli government should be doing is allowing food, water, electricity, essential medical supplies to reach the people of Gaza. Many of those people in Gaza, particularly the children, the women, the men, weren't involved in the atrocities of Hamas. And I do worry about the ripple effects of what's happened in the Middle East affecting our city with an increase in anti-Semitism and an increase in Islamophobia as well. We can't allow what's happening in the Middle East to affect the streets of our city.
Some Conservative MPs think you should ban pro-Palestine marches.
Well, let me be quite clear about this, and I think Conservative MPs should understand what the law is. It's the Home Secretary. Only she has the power to ban any marches. I'm quite clear, though, a cornerstone of our democracy, a cornerstone, is the right to protest.
Do these marches worry you?
The protests, though, have to be peaceful, lawful and safe. And so the police will be working incredibly hard, again, as they always do this weekend, to make sure people have the right to protest. The right to protest does not mean the right to break the law, and so the police will be taking action if the law is broken.
Simon Harris speaking to Sadiq Khan there, and you can watch his full interview with the Mayor of London discussing all the major issues, including HS2, in the late debate here at ITV at 10:45.
Battered by COVID and soaring energy bills, London's pubs are facing another big worry, which some fear could threaten their businesses. Financial help from the government is months away from drying up, and there are now calls to extend it. And as our political correspondent Simon Harris reports, pubs need all the help they can get.
Lucy is one of a new breed of landlady. She runs a micropub. Typically, they're small bars set up in empty shops. Lucy's micropub, the Dodo at Hanwell in West London, was doing well. Then came the pandemic. Now she only opens 5 days a week and can only rely on Friday to be busy.
Every single other day is completely erratic. There's no pattern to business at all. So, for example, last month on a Saturday night, I had one gentleman in with me at 7:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, and that's unheard of in the 6 years of business that I've been running.
The Blue-Eyed Maid was once a popular pub in Southwark, but its doors are closed and the pigeons have moved in. According to analysts who study the commercial property market, it's an all too familiar story.
During the first half of 2023, roughly the same amount of pubs have been lost for good as with the whole of last year. And in London, sadly, it's the worst of all English regions.
When London's streets emptied during the first COVID lockdown, it proved fatal for some pubs. London was slower to recover than other parts of the country. Working from home, rail strikes and fewer foreign tourists have all had an impact. The government responded by offering a discount on business rates.
However, that relief comes to an end in March, and what we're urging the government to do is to extend that for a year. Don't end it prematurely, and that will mean that there's a vital lifeline for many more thousands of pubs that would otherwise be generally at risk.
In 2016, the Mayor appointed Amy LeMay as Night Czar with a mission to boost London's nightlife. She earns almost £120,000 a year, but some question whether she's value for money.
What's happened? What are you doing for hospitality since you were appointed in 2016? Because I'm very unaware currently, and we're reaching a point where pubs are closing rapidly and you are in a position where you could really affect this positively, so we need to see more action.
In a statement, Amy LeMay said City Hall was doing all it could to support pubs, including offering advice to landlords threatened with closure and encouraging people back to the high street. In Hanwell, Lucy admits she's thought about throwing in the towel. There are some months her business is only just surviving.
That was Simon Harris reporting. Well, in a statement, the government said, "We recognise the challenges pubs face, which is why we have slashed their bills by 75%, protected them from rising energy costs and are keeping the duty on pints down through our Brexit pubs guarantee."